Welcome on Democracy with FP Wellman. I am Fred Wellman, your host. We're back in our studio in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri. It's great to be back. Last week was down in Georgia for the whole week, helping my friend Marcus Flowers debate Margie Taylor Greene and handle some media. It was a lot of fun. I just love Northwest Georgia, but it's always good to be back in St. Louis, back in my fancy studio. As always, I always like to mention our friends at Vi Media, the award-winning digital market agency. It's based right here in the greater St. Louis area. Our sponsor, they are your marketing partner, consistently generates proven growth in a variety of different industries. They can serve all of your digital market needs, and I hope you'll give them a call or check out their website. Their website's really easy to find. It's vi.media. That's VIE.media on the web. I hope you'll give them a chance and talk to them. So this week's show is another one. I just want for the record, I just love it. Another great pro-democracy movement voice. I'm excited to talk to them. You probably already know them. Like always, half my guests, you always know them already. But so let's get on with the show. Welcome. I am Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman, the show where we talk to great folks from around the country and around the world who are fighting for our democracy and the moment we face in the world. On that note, this week's guest is one of the key voices I follow. I tip him off a lot. I talk to him a lot online. I think we've DM'd and tweeted back and forth. Ron Filipkowski is an attorney, former Marine, triathlete, historian. You probably know him best for his falling out with Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida and his subsequent blossoming as a force of nature, tracking the far right and their silliness online and their right-wing extremism. Ron was a federal prosecutor and a Republican, lifelong Republican. While watching the threat posed to our democracy by right-wing extremism, he became a national social media influencer. And he's been seen on BBC, CNN, MSNBC, and on Democracy with FP Wellman. He's recently launched his own podcast, Context. On top of all of that, somewhere in between all of that, Ron, you got a day job as a practicing attorney based out of Sarasota, Florida, which is why sometimes you're hard to get hold of. But, we have to all have day jobs. We can't do this for fun. So, Ron, man, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
That's great.
Nice to get to talk to you other than through Twitter.
Right? I know. I've made so many damn good friends, though. I love the platform so much. Hopefully Friday doesn't ruin it. We'll see. So on that note, maybe the last of it right there, but we'll see. Ron, I think we talked a little bit before, and I mentioned that, one of my favorite things to do on the show, if you've watched it, is I really like to talk to folks about their journey. How did you get here? Where did you get here? My journey to where I ended up in the Lincoln Project, and here is pretty well known at this point. And yours is too. I've seen some interviews you talk about. You were a lifelong Republican. You were a Marine. You were a party official. You ran the club, I think the Republican Club in Sarasota, which means you loved your work. I mean, and now you find yourself on the other side of that. When did you start? When did the veil start getting lifted off your eyes that perhaps you were no longer in a party that welcomes you?
I would say probably the first was the election of Obama. Probably is when it really started, although it was kind of a slow burn at that point. I was the Republican Club president, the largest Republican club on the west coast of Florida at that time when Obama was elected.
Yeah.
And I just started to see in the club, the racism come out, the real venomous hostility to Obama that was personal, with all the stuff that you see with John McCain did, of yelling at the guy who tried to call him a Muslim or, whatever. I had those very same experiences in my club where I was saying, look, we can disagree with Obama about a lot of things, but what you're saying right now is crazy,
Right.
So I would knock it down but you just saw, that was the first time I really saw the ugly side of some of these people, but I still believed at that time, it was only about 10%.
Right.
I think I was probably wrong.
Right. Yeah. The loud minority, right?
Right. That's what I thought at the time. And then, of course, the election of Trump was a watershed moment.
Yeah. I talk a lot about, and if people see me talk, for me, it's funny how there are these moments, and for me, and I think probably for you as a former Marine, it was the interview we did where he talked about McCain not being a hero because he was captured. And I say it, and I think you're probably the same way. I know we think the same way. It wasn't so much that Trump said that. Look, that's just Trump. Trump's, Trump. But what bothered me really was the following weeks where the people I expected to condemn that, the people I expected to completely basically kick him out of the party at that point and end his presidency and his attempt to be a president, did not. That our fellow veterans, our fellow, some veterans groups and others, they rallied around him in many ways. I mean, if you remember, just weeks later, the folks for the Rolling Thunder ride, they used to run the Rolling Thunder ride. They don't run it anymore. But Rolling Thunder invited him as the guest speaker at the end of Rolling Thunder on Memorial Day weekend in Washington, D.C. Rolling Thunder honors POWs and MIAs from Vietnam, and they invited a guy who just said that POWs were cowards, basically. They weren't heroes. And I said, oh, shit. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't belong here anymore, right? And I had run for office as a Republican, and there we are, right? That's the moment you see it.
At the time he said that, I was teaching a class on the history of the Vietnam War, because I've always taught part-time in addition to practicing law.
Right.
And, we covered the POWs. And one of the things you learn about the McCain story is that his father was an admiral.
Right.
And he was given the option very early on in his captivity to go home.
Right.
And because of who his father was, and, on a prisoner exchange, and he turned it down. Right. He said, I don't want to get any special treatment. I want to be treated just like every other person in this camp. And so he literally voluntarily was tortured for an additional 5 or 6 years when he could have gone home at any time.
Right.
So to say that is not courageous. Yeah, I already disliked Donald Trump, but that was the deal breaker for me. But yeah, like you said, for me, the most disappointing thing isn't the behavior of Trump. It's the people around him who enable him and don't call him out.
Right. And
many of whom are people that we liked.
That's the thing. People we worked with, people we knew. I've friends. I mean, classmates from West Point. I have a very fractured relationship with my alma mater now because of this. Because I've been so vocal. I'm not terribly welcome, I think. And that's the choice I think we had to make. I mean, those of us who decided to go in the direction we did and take that risk, I think it was worth it. Obviously, it was worth it. We're on the right side. History will write this, and we'll be on the right side of it. But it's pretty ugly in the near term. Right? So you were an appointee. You resigned after the raid on the doctors on the lady's house. Who's running for Congress now. And so you discovered to start throwing these clips up on the internet. I think that's when I came across you. I was at the Lincoln Project at the time, doing our veterans work. You're a Marine veteran, so I've been tracking you for a while, and that work is good. And so you've seen the rise of this extremism and the danger we face as we come into it now, right? And so now here we are. Let's flip to today, right? So here we are. We're 2 weeks from the midterm, less than 2 weeks now. We always say democracy is at stake, but really is. I mean, there's key Senate races. I know you're tracking specific races in states. So, what is the play? I mean, is the Senate's in play, the House is in play. I'd love your perspective. I mean, where is it in play, and where are the key places we need to be looking, and what can be done? It's a lot of questions in one question, isn't it? Yeah. So just tell me everything, Ron. Let's start with, all right, so let's pick Senate races. Let's pick some Senate races you care about. Yeah. I mean, I think you and I talked about Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia. Obviously, Georgia I'm passionate about. What else you got in your radar, and what's your thoughts on these Senate races, and where are we going to see here soon?
I felt pretty early on in this cycle that the House was lost. Okay. I mean, that's just my own personal feeling, that with all of the things lining up with it, no growth in the economy, I knew the inflation, the pullout of Afghanistan, which was messy, the president's approval ratings, history, all of those things lined up, the redistricting by the Republican legislatures, all those things lined up to kind of make me think the House is a lost cause, and that the best we can do is just, keep the Republican majority slim.
Yeah.
So I pinned all my hopes on the Senate races. If we held the Senate, then that would be a win.
Yeah.
And so I early on focused all of my attention on the candidates that I thought was going to be the biggest threats in these key Senate races. So I focused on Masters and Herschel. And I think I was the first person who posted on Twitter that Herschel was going to run for Senate, because I was paying attention to what MAGA was saying. And that I posted that last spring that he was going to run, spring of 21.
Wow.
So I was tracking Walker, Oz, all of these people pretty early on, and identifying them as, the key races. The Pennsylvania race is last night with Fetterman.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I see it is if the Democrats were absolutely banking on that seat, picking up that seat,
right.
3 months ago. Obviously, the only reason why they might not is because of Fetterman's health, which is unfortunate. So if the Democrats lose Pennsylvania, in my view, we have to pick up something like Utah,
right.
With McMullen. That's the only way to save the Senate if they lose Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Because I think we hang on to Arizona. I think Kelly holds on there. I think Georgia's going to be a coin toss.
Right.
I think, probably Ryan loses Ohio just because I think Ohio's just too red.
Yeah.
But I think he's run a hell of a campaign.
Yep.
And I think we got an outside shot in Wisconsin. So I think that's how it kind of shakes out.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, these are uniquely bad candidates on our opponent's side. I mean, if Blake Masters is just ridiculous. He's unqualified in every way, but also he's a far right extremist. J.D. Vance is a fraud in every way possible. Dr. Oz, of course, is a charlatan and a con man, and then of course Herschel Walker is uniquely unserious. And it's frustrating. I mean, I think that their base of support is frustrating for a lot of us who have some sanity left in our minds. And do you see? I think probably we're going to end up in a runoff in Georgia. There is a libertarian, I believe, in the candidate there, so they have to get 50% in Georgia. But it's amazing to see someone who's so incredibly competent and dedicated to his work as Raphael Warnock to be challenged by somebody who's as unserious and dangerous in many ways as Herschel Walker. Where does that come from, do you think? I mean, what is the power behind these unserious candidates? I don't think it's people. Do you think it's the money and the money people that drive the MAGA movement, like Peter Thiel and others? What's your take on that?
Well, it helps. But yeah, one of the things that the money people certainly help. But no, I think that what I've really learned over the course of 2 years of really diving deep into what MAGA is that there is this ecosystem. There is this group of about, my estimate, about 2,000 people that really drive the train. And it's a mistake to look at the Republican Party or MAGA as a top-down movement with Trump dictating, what they're going to think and what their policies are and all of that. That is not the way it works. And I've seen this over and over again. The things that Trump says in his speeches and his rally speeches start out in some dark corner of the internet 6 months before that.
Right.
And it germinates and it builds and and a lot of it is disinformation and lies. But eventually, I'll see it start with some right-wing podcaster, and 3 months later, I hear Trump saying it in a rally speech, or I see Ted Cruz saying it on the floor of the Senate. So
right.
It really illustrated to me that what is driving MAGA is the ecosystem, is the podcasters, the media people, the social media influencers, the event organizers. These are the people that are really in charge of the Republican Party now. The inmates have truly taken over the asylum.
Oh, that seems exactly. I mean, and we used to talk about this quite a bit, even in the before days, where I was a PR guy then, right? And there is this movement where you'll see it from the fringe, and then it'll go to the Free Beacons and the Washington Examiners, right? And then it'll make its way to Fox and then becomes mainstream. But you're right. It does feel like the ecosystem has changed. Really, truly, just the fringes are saying these things. And then that ecosystem is generating the news that goes to those places. I mean, my God, OAN, the woman on OAN yesterday was doing a whole bit about, I think you posted it, about how there was the CIA plants, all these left-wing Twitter people that went to the White House for briefings were actually working for the CIA. It's like, the hell? And that's going to come out in 2 weeks, right? And so it's
3 weeks from now, Matt Gaetz will be saying it.
Right, right. It's just. I mean, and those of us who have like some common sense, it's like, okay, but where did the common sense go? And how does it does feed the system? I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we're going to talk about, I mean, there's more to talk about the election, but how do we fight that? Ron, I think you and I have had some conversations about that. How do you see fighting back against that? What is the war we face, and how do you fight that war tactically?
Let me give you another example. Let's just take the Ray Epps conspiracy.
Great.
I think it perfectly illustrates what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I first saw the Ray Epps conspiracy like March of 21 from a guy named Darren Beatty with Revolver News, right? He was the one who kind of started it by taking this. Ray Epps was a guy who was in January 6th, former Oath Keeper president from Arizona.
Right.
who was at the Capitol whipping people up saying, we got to go in there. But, he's this typical guy who's all talk, no action. He was getting everybody riled up, and then he didn't actually go in.
Right.
He stayed outside the barriers. So he was never charged. So that's what led to this conspiracy, is you have video of this guy on tape telling everybody to go into the Capitol, and then he doesn't go himself and he's not charged. So that led them to speculate with no evidence whatsoever that he was an FBI plant, right?
Right.
So you see it germinate and you see it spread in their ecosystem, and the podcasters start talking about it, and the Jack Posobiec and people like that start tweeting Ray Epps videos. And then next thing you know, Thomas Massie takes it into the House. He was the first one who said brought up the Ray Epps name in a committee hearing. And I was a little stunned. And at that time, Denver Riggleman was on the J6 committee, who I know, and
I do. Yep.
And I reached out to Denver. I'm like, Denver, this Ray Epps stuff is getting out of control. You guys have to address Ray Epps. You need to knock down this conspiracy. And he's like, Ron, I talked to him, and I think Kinzinger was on his side on this, and I get it. I hear what you're saying. And I just kept bugging him for weeks and weeks and weeks and watching this build. And then finally, what the straw that broke the camel's back was Ted Cruz. Chris Wray came in to a committee hearing, and Ted Cruz started questioning him about Ray Epps. And everybody was stunned and like, who the hell is Ray Epps and what is Ted talking about? Right. Meanwhile, I've been following this for 9 months, and so that's when I contacted Denver again, and I'm like, okay, what's it going to take for you guys to issue a statement about Ray Epps? So actually later that night, the J6 committee issued a statement. We interviewed him. He's not an informant, blah, blah, blah. This is why he wasn't charged. And the Ray Epps thing kind of went away. But why did we have to go through 9 months of agony with nobody addressing this problem?
Right.
So
that goes to, but doesn't that go to the weakness we face, right? That the pro-democracy, if you will, or the people, the normies, if you will, don't really understand this ecosystem that they live in, right? They don't understand the nature of the enemy, if you will. That's been my frustration, right? They want to do things as normal. We talked about this. I say this a lot. People who watch me a lot have seen my other appearances say, normal went out the fucking window when that orange globulous human came down that escalator, right? So everybody wants to go back to normal, and Biden getting elected didn't make us go back to normal. And you see this hunger for normal, and I think it's hurting us as we fight this battle because, well, we just want normal, and normal's dead, and the pendulum has to swing back before it can swing to the center, right? Isn't that how you see it, or is that how you frame it?
And also to get back to your original question, because I took a long time setting it up, my answer, which is how to fight it.
Right.
So and this goes to what you just said. We have a lot of PACs out there, and what are the PACs doing? They're focusing on candidates that they represent that are paying them to cut ads and do that's the traditional politics. And they're doing opposition research on their opponents.
Right.
The problem is, behind those political candidates is the ecosystem that is driving the whole thing.
Right.
And no one's taking that on. There's no PAC out there going to war with Steve Bannon and Jack Posobiec, but that's where the battle needs to be fought. So what I have proposed to some people is, to create a team of individuals who do exactly that, who are anti-disinformation specialists, who are going to track these guys, monitor what they say. Every time a political candidate goes on one of their shows or shows up at one of their events, we're recording it and we're outing these people, and we're putting what they're doing and what they're saying in front of the general public, because when they go to these small events or on these obscure podcasts, that's when they're saying, these elected officials are saying really crazy shit.
Right.
And there's no media there covering them.
Right.
So
And the media looks down at those, so the media doesn't even look at the clips of those, and so they never make it. They kind of disdain that conversation. I say that a lot. That's how Glenn Youngkin got elected, right? I mean, Glenn Youngkin would say one thing on the podcast on the Bannon War Room, and they say a completely different thing to CBS, and he got away with that.
Happens all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll see these guys. They'll post one thing on Truth Social,
right,
and they won't post that on Twitter,
right?
And it's like, well, you see why. So yeah, I mean, the whole idea of my team is, and not only that, these guys are charlatans, they're hucksters, they steal money from their own followers.
Right.
I'm aware of all of this stuff. I mean, 99% of what I'm aware of, I don't post on Twitter. I can't.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, the idea is to take the fight to them, to those people, not elected officials, not even to the candidates. That's part of it, yes, but to the people behind them, to the people who have made them what they are. You know, cut their legs out, discredit them. You know, and so I really think that that's the only solution. That the problem is, how do you get anybody interested in funding something like that? I mean, you know, how do you make money off of that enterprise? You really don't necessarily. Although I think just myself as a part-time volunteer on Twitter has generated a tremendous amount of content for PACs to run in ads for free. So I think it could benefit them that way.
I've sent you clips, you know, I've admitted freely, you know, I've tipped you a few times. I'm proud of it.
My clip of JD Vance on Bannon's podcast about saying he didn't care about Ukraine. No media picked up on that.
Right.
I posted it on Twitter, and it's a major issue in that Senate campaign.
Right.
And that's what I'm talking about.
You know, what's interesting, Ron, is about 5 weeks ago, so I had a guy named Chris Goldsmith on the show, and Chris is running Veterans Fighting Fascism and Task Force Butler, an allusion to old Smedley Butler. And they just got sued, I guess, by the Proud Boys because they infiltrated the Proud Boys little training camp in Texas and sent a drone flying over it and got pictures of everybody. Again, and they're doing it same thing. They're like, look, we have to fight this at this level. They did an entire dossier and presented it to various DOJ and others to actually go after these guys. They're doing that hard work behind the scenes because that's the same thing. That these militias, these right-wing extremists that you're tracking, the disinformation networks are undermining our democracy in a way that's fundamental to everything. And this has been my frustration too, is there's so many groups that call themselves pro-democracy groups, and I'll leave names for elsewhere and lawyers, but if you call yourself a pro-democracy group, but your entire focus is on just winning current races, the next cycle, and you're not even taking on the hard races, by the way. Right. As I mentioned in last week's little rant on my on this podcast, I said, you know, not one single third party PAC has participated in the race against Marjorie Taylor Greene, except a few Vote Vets are wonderful human beings, the CBC PAC and others, but the big famous super PACs have not gone after Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's literally the persona of the anti-democratic extremist. So it's the same thing with his. I mean, so yeah, I hope you're able to, get that. I mean, and you've got a framework, you got a plan, right? And so you're hopefully going to start building this and shopping around after the midterm, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole plan, is to implement it next year. Because here's why I say that. Because unfortunately, it seems like, and I'm a new Democrat, only been a Democrat for a year and a half, but it seems like Democrats only get motivated and respond to things when they're at the crisis point. And I think most Democrats agree with that.
There's that.
Okay. Yeah, and so honestly, I feel like the midterms almost have to go badly for anybody to listen to me. I mean, that's kind of the way I feel.
It's depressing.
Which is,
Ron,
Democrats right now are very delusional.
Yeah.
And they think everything's fine and everything's going to be fine, and we're going to win the House and we're going to win the Senate, and Stacey Abrams is going to be the governor of Georgia, and Charlie Crist is going to beat Ron DeSantis, and that's all fantastical thinking.
Right.
And so I almost think that, it has to go bad for them to wake up, just like happened in 2016. Unfortunately, the Democrats didn't really get motivated to take on Donald Trump, I think, because I think that they thought he wasn't going to win.
How could he possibly win?
There was just no way.
He's so ridiculous. Who would vote for him? It's just,
right. They're making the same mistake now, and so I almost feel like they have to lose the House. They have to lose a bunch of these governor races. And then maybe somebody will go, oh shit, what just happened? Right. What do we do? How do we stop this?
Yeah.
And you can't just blame the voters. That it's not their fault.
Well, it's also the big money, right? I mean, the thing we face on the right is Peter Thiel's and these others. Steve Schmidt rattled off about 4 names during our interview a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Who was the gentleman gave like $1.5 billion to the group that selects federal judges? They've literally got lifetime funding now from one guy. We don't see that on the left. On the left, they give their money to all the charities. I think the Bill and Melinda Gates are giving all their money away to charity, which is great, but our democracy is in danger. We don't see our friend. Everybody likes to talk about the George Soros, but Soros actually isn't spending. Even he is not actually investing in these kind of things, and so the money on our side is grassroots mostly. It's what's funded my friend Marcus Flowers' entire campaign and others. It's funded the folks at the Lincoln Project. Is this grassroots funding? Harnessing that grassroots and getting our grassroots to understand the danger we face, and then giving them to invest in these kind of missions is really tough. I hope we can do that, and we have to do it as a team. And I think you're right. It does make me nervous. We have seen some mistakes. Let's talk about some. Just in the last 48 hours, our friends at the Congressional Progressive Caucus released and unreleased a letter about Ukraine and staff error, and it's just like, can we not shoot ourselves in the foot for just a minute? Can we not? Can we just win? And it gets very frustrating when we see these own goals. Do you think? 2 weeks. What can the Democrats do at this point? As we get close to the midterm, I don't want to just give up yet. I do have candidates in the races in Georgia and Louisiana. I do believe our democracy is at stake. You just watched this ridiculous with Ron DeSantis and that just debacle of a debate where he looked like a deer in the headlights, but still has his followers and friends, and probably won't change a single mind. Is there anything we can do in these next 2 weeks that'll come help us save these midterms, or what's your thinking on that? Yeah, I know, right? That's a big question, and I warned you.
In the next 2 weeks, probably not. I think the last really big event was last night. The Fetterman debate I thought was critical. I think Pennsylvania is a blue state. I think that Fetterman is very popular person in Pennsylvania. And I think that what I said on Twitter a few hours before the debate, that voters are the hesitant voters, the undecided lean Fetterman voters just wanted to see and hear him sound okay, right, and sound good. And I thought that if he went out there and did that, he didn't need to score a bunch of points. He just needed to look and sound good. And he didn't. To be honest, I don't think he did. Right. I watched the whole debate. I think he sounds like he's still very impaired by his stroke. And I think that that's a horrible thing. And it really sucks that now, I think if he'd knocked it out of the park last night, the race was over.
Right.
But he didn't. And now we got to sweat it out, and then there'll be the blame game. Whose fault is it? Is it his wife's fault? Is it his handler's fault? Is it the Pennsylvania Democratic Party's fault for him not dropping out?
Right.
So yeah, we'll go through all that. But yeah, the Herschel race, I guess there's another woman coming forward today.
Oh,
with
I didn't
another
know.
abortion.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think Masters is toast in Arizona, but
good.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of ticket splitting, and that's the interesting thing. I think
I was going there next, my friend. I was going there next. I'm a Georgia guy, obviously. So
yeah, well, I think there's going to be at least 4% or so that are going to vote Brian Kemp Warnock.
Right.
I think and that's another part of the problem is, our top of the ticket people in Arizona and Georgia haven't run good campaigns. I don't think. I think that Stacey Abrams ran a much better campaign the last time than she did this time. I think Brian Kemp's going to win Georgia fairly easily, and I think that's a drag on Warnock, potentially. Same thing in Arizona. Carrie Lake is a complete lunatic. Right. She's crazy. But, Katie Hobbs ran a bad campaign. Tim Miller just wrote a really good article in the Bulwark about her campaign, and I agree with everything he wrote. So, that could hurt Mark Kelly. So, right now there's just a lot of consternation and stress.
Yeah, across the board, And on that note, so let's say, you're in Florida. I'd love to take it back to Florida. I've got a special place in my heart, a very dark part of my heart for Ron DeSantis and his rise. We've seen his tendencies in the last 2 years, 4 years of being extremely authoritarian, if you will. His behavior, Christina Pushaw's behavior as his mouthpiece, his propaganda minister. I think my friend Rick Wilson likes to call her the deputy governor. I mean, you're living it firsthand. The danger of the rise of Ron DeSantis and the future of the Ron DeSantis after this election. I don't know if Charlie's going to beat him. It's obviously a long shot now in Florida. Let's say DeSantis wins this. What's our future with Ron DeSantis, and what are we looking at with his? You've seen it up close and personal.
Yeah, well, he's very different than Trump, and it's
Right.
a mistake to even put them in the same sentence because they're so different.
Okay.
Ron is let's say, how are they different? Ron is an extremely hard worker. I mean, I'm not going to take that away from him. He is a detail-oriented guy. He works all night. He reads briefing papers. He reads policy papers. Mm-hmm. All the stuff that Trump would never do.
Right.
That is DeSantis.
They're not illustrated, right?
Yeah, and DeSantis is very good at scripted events. Right. He can stay, unlike Trump, he's very disciplined and he stays on message. Here's the other difference between the two is that one-on-one in small rooms with people in rooms with the fat cat fundraisers, Trump is gold. That's Trump's wheelhouse. He's very good in those environments. Mm-hmm. DeSantis is terrible. I mean, when you get in a small room with DeSantis, you just want to get the hell out of there because it's uncomfortable. He's uncomfortable around small groups. He doesn't like people. I mean, this has been documented over and over again. And I know this from people that I know here in Florida who have had interactions with him. So they're very, very different people. I don't think they like each other at all. I think that Trump feels, he made him, which he did. Right. Ron DeSantis would have lost his primary by 30 points without the Trump endorsement. He was absolutely toast. His campaign was getting no traction. And so Trump, wants DeSantis to kiss his ass like everybody and, say, I love you. You're the man, and DeSantis won't do that. He absolutely won't kiss Trump's ass. He never mentions Trump's name.
Right.
The last time he's probably said the word Trump was maybe 2 years ago. Wow. He doesn't even say Trump's name. Okay. And so that aggravates Trump. So I don't think they will run against each other. I mean, there's no way DeSantis will run against Trump for a number of reasons. Number one, he knows he'll lose. Number two, even if he won, Trump would blow up the party. Trump would just do what he's doing to the guy running for Senate in Colorado and just tell MAGA not to vote for him, right? And just undermine him. So no, and it would splinter the movement. And DeSantis is like 42 years old. Right. I know DeSantis will be perfectly happy to wait 4 more years, wait him out. Right. So yeah, that's never going to happen. But DeSantis in some ways is far more dangerous than Trump because he is so disciplined. And DeSantis won't even give an interview to anyone. Right. You can't get an interview with Ron DeSantis. And so I don't know how that translates into a national campaign. How no one's ever tried to run for president without doing any interviews.
Yeah, and he's very stiff. And he's very stiff. You saw that in the debate. He's stiff. Like you said, he doesn't do well off script. He's not clever. No. He's not a clever guy. I mean, you're right. And you think he's a lawyer, but he's not clever. He's not fast on his feet. He's very cumbersome and clumsy is as I would describe it. Right. It's just, and that doesn't work. People do want to, the thing about Trump is he's a performer, right? It's where he got where he is. He's an actor. He's been performing for the camera since the 70s, and he's able to turn it on. Although I think he's losing his edge in his old age. Thank God. But, that's definitely DeSantis. It seems like the bright lights come on and he wilts a bit. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But the danger
I would
is
compare
there.
It to like trial lawyers. Me being a trial lawyer, I've done 300 jury trials in my career. And you see this with lawyers. There are some lawyers who are very quick on their feet, who somebody can surprise them with something and they can shift strategy and shift gears and in the middle of a trial. And then there are people and that's Trump, right. And then there are people like DeSantis who they have their plan. And if things don't go according to their plan, they don't know what to do. They get rattled very easily. Yeah. We saw that in the debate. And that's DeSantis. So that's why I don't think DeSantis is going to be a particularly good presidential candidate, because what you can get away with in a state race with local media, I don't see how you can do that. Plus, on the national scale, and I think that those big donors, although he's done well with them, They like to be stroked. They like to be,
Right.
like to have their asses kissed. And Ron just can't do that.
Right.
Interesting.
And now, do you think any of these scandals will catch up with them too? I mean, you've been like a dog on a bone, and Daniel Uhlfelder's been a dog on the bone with the debacle out of Texas and the Venezuelan immigrants. Are there the scandals bubbling that may unwind this whole thing for him, or is he untouchable?
Yeah, no, I've talked to the guys behind the people suing him right now. I mean, the Andrew Warren case, the district attorney that he removed is a scandal.
Right.
Disney. I mean, look, the Disney thing hasn't hit the fan yet. I talked to Nikki Fried about this like last month. I mean, that was when they stripped Disney of their self-governing powers. That doesn't take effect until next spring. So is that actually going to happen? Are they actually going to strip Disney of their self-governing powers? And people outside of Florida maybe don't understand the significance of that, but that is a huge deal in Florida.
Right.
Disney is a major operator, and they pretty much run Kissimmee, and that is, if the state tries to go in there and take over that area, I'm talking about police, fire, zoning codes, and all that. I can't even imagine.
Right.
I mean, Disney has controlled that area for 50 years. How is the state going to step in there and do all that?
And I saw that the tax implications are staggering.
Beyond me.
I mean, they're staggering for the people. Suddenly
you have that looming, all the lawsuits,
right?
And the Texas thing where he appears to have violated Florida law,
right?
The biggest problem that we have is that there is absolutely nobody in the Florida legislature in the Republican Party who will do any. They all hate him. I mean, I know some of these people. Right. They hate Ron DeSantis personally, but they will not oppose him. They're all afraid of him.
Is it a fear? Is it enjoying the power? I mean, the power trip that he gives them, or is it just that they know if they cross him, they'll pay a price?
Yeah, well, he's learned from Trump here.
I was leading you there.
A couple of the legislators tried to. They definitely stood up to him in 20. I mean, he didn't get his way in 2020. But this year, I think he took a whole different strategy and basically is like, if you don't go along with me on everything, like redistricting, the legislature passed a redistricting map. Right. He just tore it up in their faces. He did that over and over again with bill after bill, where they sent it to him and he said, "No, not signing this. Go back and do it again." And they did. And a couple of them stood up to him, and then he threatened to endorse their primary opponents. Or to find somebody to run against him in the primary, and they back down. So, he's using the Trump playbook to intimidate people in his own party.
Yeah. And it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't, and that's the problem. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but everything I've read is he violated the law with the way he used these funds. I mean, for God's sake, they used COVID funds to move these folks clearly illegally. And that's why I guess I have hope. I mean, I don't know why I have hope. It's weird. Maybe we should go there. I don't know why I'm still an optimist. It's strange. After serving so long in the military that I have any optimism left at all. But nonetheless, but you're right. I mean, I do have hope. I do have hope that the systems will work, that the courts will do the right things and catch up with these guys. But the waiting is killing us, right? And we see that at the national level. And I guess I'll wind up with that with our last few minutes. I mean, I know it's hard, but is there a cause? Is there a case for optimism in your view? Where can we find optimism? Where is we who are fighting for our democracy? Because I want to bring people up and say, look, don't give up the fight. We were talking. I talked to last week in my quick hit that the surrender monkeys. These fucking surrender monkeys. Like, oh, you're throwing your money away. Like, no. I said this about the Val, and we'll go back to Florida. The Val Demings debate where Val just smoked Rubio. What should have been. I should have gotten an email that morning from the DNC the next morning with Val's clips and a split send, right? But instead I got an email from Amy Klobuchar. It's like, okay. We continue to shit on our stars. And is there a cause or a case for optimism to be made as we go into this next phase of our democracy?
Yeah, I think two things. One, I think there's a huge number of what I call the silent middle, right. Which is a lot of people that don't pay attention, that don't watch the news, that are just not that informed, and they've been voting Republican or voting for their party or they're independent for their whole life, and that's how they vote. And those people are turned off by MAGA. They really are. And what I try and do, the whole point of my work is addressed at those people, which is for people following me on Twitter who might be progressive, but their family members are Republican.
Right.
This is my family members are Republican, is to put this stuff in front of them. And what inevitably happens, because I've seen this thousands of times, is that people are repulsed and they go, oh, this is horrible. We're not for that. But we don't like Joe Biden, or we don't like AOC, or, so
avocado toast Prius drivers.
So yeah, the two parts of this are, yes, there's this big chunk in the middle of moderate Republicans that are still Republican, that are still voting Republican, who are repulsed by MAGA. All they want is an acceptable alternative. Right now, we're not giving them that.
Right.
And so where is that? It is the younger Democrats. It is the middle-aged Democrats. It's the ones in Congress that are between the ages of 30 and 50, I think, are the ones that these middle could relate to and could agree with. It's the senior leaders, and AOC just unhelpfully said yesterday that the leadership of the Democratic Party is too old. I say unhelpfully because I agree with that. Yeah. Okay. But this is not the time to say that.
Can we say it 2 weeks? Can we hold that fire for 2 weeks?
But yes, that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is that this silent middle doesn't connect with Jerry Nadler and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi.
We're decent people,
but they would with Jamie Raskin or Eric Swalwell or Tim Ryan,
Pete Buttigieg.
Some of these people, even a Katie Porter, I think, appeals to a lot of them. And Amy Klobuchar, you just said, Whitmer is another one. I mean, there are Val Demings is another one.
Yeah.
So,
Marcus,
so we have
Marcus
these stars, I think, in the Democratic Party that need to be elevated. The problem is the senior leaders won't go away. Right. They need to retire.
Yeah, so we grew up. You and I are old enough to remember the old, the AT&T, the Southern Bell, and then the Bell system, right? And that was always the joke. I grew up in St. Louis, where the Bell had a huge headquarters, and that was the thing. The only way you moved up in the phone company when somebody died, right? Aren't we past that? But it'd be nice to be past that. But here we are, right? Because that seniority does bring with it certain power that is hard to give up for these folks. That next year. And then I find hope in Gen Z. I really do. I work with Voters for Tomorrow. I'm a huge fan of their work. I have hope there. I find a lot of hope in this new generation. I've raised a couple of Gen Zers and even a couple of millennials because they're split in my house. And I have great hope for the awareness that these kids bring to the table of what we face and what they've lived through. The health challenges, the health insurance challenges. My daughter's got some chronic illnesses that have made her life very hard. It's one of the reasons, frankly, I say all the time that one of the reasons I became more progressive. The outside factors of what happened to Obama and all. I used to joke I did veterans work, so I saw the Obamas a lot, and they kept being decent people, and it screwed me up. But by the same token was my employees. I had an employee who had a challenge getting health care. She needed a hip replacement at 32. I have a daughter with chronic illnesses that struggles with the insurance system, and I saw firsthand the systems we'd built were failing this generation, and I find hope there that if they turn out, if they come out, they're fired up now that their lives are their futures are in danger, that as they come forward. I mean, John Del Volpe was supposed to be on last week when we had this disaster logistically. I'm going to blame Matt for that, even though I had nothing to do with it. But when John's got their pollers come out, he runs the youth polling. That's what John's been doing for 2 decades, and there's great hope there. The split is the divide between the older generation and the younger generation is staggering as far as the D plus and the R plus. So I guess that's where I find my hope. I hope we can keep them in the fight and get them in the fight as they get older. So I appreciate it. Well, Ron, you got a lot going on. So tell us what's next for you. I mean, I think we talked a little bit about it. Obviously, you've got your day job and you've got the work you're doing, and hopefully you'll be doing this full time after the election. Is that what we should expect?
I'd like that because, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I have to shut down my work on politics and practice law. And I've really gotten to the point where I love what I'm doing in politics, and I'm kind of been practicing law for 30 years. Yeah. And I'm ready to kind of make a transition. My kids are all grown.
There you go.
Out of the house. I'm empty nester now. Yeah. So I'm ready to maybe do something different and really work politics full time, but I probably need somebody to hire me.
There you go. All right. There's your call to action. Matt, we got our call to action for the show right there. We say you have to have a call to action on your show. That's our call to action. Somebody give give Ron a bunch of money because the fight matters. I think I'm unemployed on November 9th, so I think he's hiring. No, anyway.
Here we are.
Damn it.
Jobs,
sucks.
Right?
But it's what you got to shill. No, and that's it, right? If our democracy's in danger, and when we have activists and people who have the voice and understand it, I think hopefully we can find the folks who will invest in those efforts like yours, because I'm a huge fan of what you do, and you've been a great supporter of the efforts I do. And I have to thank you before we go, all the work you've done for me as professionals that we've worked together for in and out since Lincoln Project and collaborating as fellow activists. And that is, you know, politics. Politics is full of very broken people. It's and so it's always good to find somebody who's in it for the right reasons, like you are, and others. So I really appreciate you for that. So Ron, with that, where do people find you if they haven't found you already? Online and everywhere. Not their home. Let's not tell them where your home is.
Yeah, too many people know that already.
There you go.
On Twitter with my name. Yeah, my podcast that I do is called Context, which I do a little bit sporadically, not regularly. But that's pretty much it. You can follow me there. I mean, I'm on all the other sites, but under anonymous names.
Yeah, the breakout.
So you won't find me on there, but I'm there.
Smart. I got a couple of those myself. My little sock puppets. they love all my stuff. Well, of course, as well. Thanks so much. As always, folks can find me at at FP Wellman. I'm FP Wellman everywhere. FP Wellman Official on Instagram. Of course, right here on Democracy Pod on Twitter. Hope you'll follow our Twitter feed as well. I tell your friends if you like the show, give us a great review and share it. We're available now, thanks to Matt's hard work on every single podcast platform you can imagine. The Lincoln Project documentary continues. It's getting entertaining now. If you're watching Showtime, you can see me walking around on their current episode of The Circus with Marcus Flowers. They did you would have loved it, Ron. They did like a slow motion of us doing doors. We decided we're going to do everything in slow motion. We all look so good in slow motion. So that's what the campaign will now be, in slow motion for everything we do. And with that, Ron, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for the work you do. We all appreciate you, and I hope you have a great week. And this next week's going to be a hair raising, but we're still in the fight. So thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for joining the show. I guess we'll see you next week.